Hunter x Hunter is one of the best stories of all time. The majority of us fell in love with it thanks to the 2011 adaptation, and many of us went on to read the manga and experience this amazing world and characters in their original form. But what about their now almost forgotten 1999 adaptation? If those posts by 90s anime aesthetic accounts weren't enough to convince you, then I'm about to explain why I think this version of the story is awesome. Not only it's able to stand shoulders to shoulders with the 2011 adaptation, but it might even surpass it in various aspects. Let's get into what makes this version unique. After Studio Pierrot tested the waters with the 1998 pilot episode where Kurapika had brown hair for some reason, and the boat ride to the Hunter exams happened a little differently, Nippon Animation started animating Hunter x Hunter in 1999, you should know the year by now, and it was directed by Kazuhiro Furuhashi, the man responsible for also directing a cult classic Rurouni Kenshin, Dororo, and the hit show Spy Family. And I gotta say, it's interesting how he managed to be the director in two of the franchises with the most mispronounced names. Thanks, X. But anyway, it's thanks to him that this show stands out as much as it does, because he has a keen eye for direction and the ability to create the perfect atmosphere for each scene, whether it's cozy, tense, thrilling, comedic, bittersweet, melancholic. Of course, the credit for this show's insane vibe and atmosphere also goes to the storyboard artists, who filled each episode with creative and visually interesting shots, often framing the characters in peculiar ways, such as showing them through the reflection of another character's eyes or through the distorted lens of a glass, and so on. And I can't forget to mention just how important the music is when it comes to creating the perfect atmosphere for each scene. 99's soundtrack is amazing and has a very eclectic quality to it, ranging from the JRPG sounding tracks of the Hunter exams, full of wonder and excitement and epic sounding flutes, to the noir-esque and jazzy sounds of the more serious and somber York New arc, which is in my opinion the arc where this adaptation is at its absolute best. Other than the direction, vibe, atmosphere and music, the main thing that sets it apart from its 2011 counterpart is how the show actually looks, and it's obvious even at a first glance. The 99 adaptation has a radically different approach when it comes to color direction. Part of the reason why is obviously the age difference. Back then artists still drew and painted on actual paper, then scanned it and put it on film. This step of the process dulled the actual colors, and that's why anime of that time period has that particular look to it. But that's not the only reason why 99 looks the way it does. Like I've mentioned before, the director has a very specific vision for this show, a direction that could be argued to be way closer to the manga's depiction of events compared to 2011's. Hunter x Hunter as a story did certainly always have lighter elements, but I think the more realistic and darker direction rings more true to the source material. And this is something that 2011 understood as well when it came time to adapt the Chimera Ant arc, where the overly bright colors were dropped for the most part. And I don't agree with the argument that Hunter x Hunter is supposed to start out like a light adventure and progressively get darker, because the darker elements have always been right there from the start. Hunter exams themselves are set up so that the weaker participants will literally die if they are not up for the task, because the Hunter Association does not care. It's stated in the beginning that hunters are all eccentric, and most of the time they're bad people, not to mention Killua's fucked up family and upbringing and the way it shaped his morality as well as his perception of life and death. Overall, Hunter x Hunter's world is as fantastical and whimsical as it is cruel and brutal. Even our four main characters, while they're obviously good people, none of them have a perfect moral code. They're very realistically flawed, each in their own way, and they're a far cry from the paragons of justice of your average shonen story. And I would argue that this is the element that makes Togashi's characters so damn relatable and compelling, no matter which of his works we're talking about. So having said that, I think 99's tone fits perfectly with the world that Togashi has created and the stories that take place in it. 99 is also more accurate to the manga in other ways that people don't give it credit for. For example, Togashi is known to change up his cast's wardrobe very often, and while most of those choices are reflected in 2011, 1999 takes it a step further by even taking into account the very brief change in Kurapika's outfit design in the Zoldyck family arc, and turning it into that really cool red outfit. Special care has also been put into the backgrounds and environmental art. Natural backgrounds are often done in a very neat and pleasing watercolor style, which is just so nice to look at, and the environments all look believable, lived in, and very realistic. And they help greatly in conveying the darker atmosphere of this show by clever use of lighting to set up the mood, enhancing the impact of specific moments and sections. For example, the Gon vs Hanzo fight, the entire Trick Tower segment, the forest of Zevel Island, and the list goes on. Seriously, every location in the show is gorgeous. They couldn't have done a better job. And don't even get me started on Yorknew, where literally every shot is perfect. Another important element that sets this adaptation apart is the character designs, where they've taken a more realistic and detailed approach, and plenty of characters benefit from this. For example, I think Benchi, Illumi, and Machi look a lot better in this version, both because of the color choices and the general sharper art style, which gives them an edge that really fits their character. The same can't be said for poor Beans though, who looks like a fleshy nightmare. I also think that Killua and Kurapika look really good in this version, probably something to do with how their hair is drawn, and the same goes for the entire Phantom Troop, which looks super badass and menacing. Overall, 2011's designs look closer to the late manga art style, while these designs more closely resemble the ones from the early manga portion, even though they're not exactly one-to-one, except for a few episodes where it almost felt like Togashi himself drew them. These character designs have their own distinct identity, just like everything else in the show, and combined with everything else I've mentioned, it all contributes to making this show feel like a cohesive and artistically valid interpretation of the show that isn't afraid of making full use of its medium, even at the cost of rearranging, which brings me to my next and most controversial topic: fillers. Like the majority of anime of this time period, this show has filler, but not in the classic, oh shit, we're running out of manga material, quick, make up a random storyline before we catch up, because the fillers in this show are actually a valid addition most of the time, and they serve to better explore the characters from a psychological standpoint. Yes, some of it is definitely not necessary, and some of it is sloppily executed, like the entire sep of the illusion tree in the first test, which gave us amazing scenes like the ones with Leorio and Kurapika that helps us understand their backstory and motivation in a much more visually interesting way. But it also creates a giant what the fuck moment, where Killua busts out his assassin bombs to destroy the wall and somehow catch up to the rest of the contestants who kept running, while our main four not only stopped running and were already the last ones in the race, they also went further back to the illusion tree, and this is just one of many examples. But despite the inconsistencies that the fillers create, I still appreciate their inclusion because we also get some of my favorite scenes, like Killua bonding with Mito, getting a taste for what a normal kid's childhood is like, and showcasing the heartbreaking effects of his toxic upbringing when it comes to how he deals with life and death, or the entire episode about the battleship, which, fun fact, Togashi apparently wanted to include that whole section in the manga but didn't have time for it, but I couldn't find a proper source. Or the remaining Hunter contestants thinking that the final test would be a written exam because of Bodoro's random comment. He actually had no idea. Or the extended scene of the aftermath of Gon and Hisoka's confrontation in the forest, which was honestly beautiful and helped to sell just how much Gon's pride was hurt in that instance. Or even the extended episode 1, which greatly amplified the impact of Gon and Mito's goodbye scene. It was very emotional. And I can't forget to mention the beautiful scenes related to Kurapika in Yorknew, from his training full of symbolism, surreal and evocative imagery, that stunning shot of him arriving at the Nostrada mansion, Melody playing that amazing piano track, the devastating effects that killing Uvo had on Kurapika, and so on. You can just feel the passion the staff put into these scenes. It's exactly this passion that makes 99 look visually superior in every comparison with 2011. I'm sure you've seen plenty of those posts that compare the same moments side to side. The biggest and most well-known example is definitely the Kurapika Scarlet Eyes scene. You can really tell that 99 managed to capture that moment much better than 2011 did. And this isn't a diss for 2011. Like I've said, I think that the Chimera Ant is beautifully adapted and directed, but I think the earlier arcs had that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood effect. Let me explain. It's when the material that has already been adapted not even that long ago is given less importance to the unadapted material. That said, the earlier arcs are still great in 2011, But things like the super bright colors, the simplified character designs, and censorship do bring it down a little tiny bit, but it's still a 10 out of 10 for me though. And I'll never forgive the 2011 team for not including Kite in episode 1. What were they doing? I've spent a lot of time talking about how the show looks, but how does it actually move? Well, I'm happy to say that the show is also very competently animated, and if I'm being honest, I think the animation for every major fight might actually be better in this version. Gon vs Hisoka, Kurapika vs Uvo, Chrollo vs Zeno and Silva, they all look stunning, very fluid, and the way they animated Kurapika's chains is particularly satisfying to me in a way that 2011 just wasn't. The fact that Hunter x Hunter doesn't have many 1v1 battles works in the show's favor because it means they can put their all into these moments, while still maintaining great quality in each episode. But unfortunately this quality wouldn't last, or at least it doesn't last for the anime's original run. You see, the anime doesn't actually complete the York New arc in its 62 episodes, but no need to worry, the sequel OVA does the job of finishing that arc with the same stellar presentation of the original series. The actual problem starts with the Greed Island OVAs. Right on the cusp of the switch between traditional and digital animation, Nippon Animation continued the story of Hunter x Hunter with two OVAs, one in 2003 and one in 2004. The original staff from 99, however, did not return for these OVAs, so it's almost not even the same show aside from the voice actors. The unique and atmospheric direction style was lost, and due to the switch to digital, the art took a massive nosedive. It looks great in the openings, well, 2 out of 3 at least, but in the actual show it definitely took them a while to get used to the new art style. The colors became way too saturated and bright, and not in a good way like 2011, which still looked great. Greed Island as an arc is different enough from what came before to warrant a new style. It's a shame that it wasn't executed to its best here, because this arc is really solid when it comes to storytelling, as everything Hunter x Hunter related of course. And still, the OVAs aren't bad either. They have moments of amazing character art and still shots, and the color issues seem to get better towards the end. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the animation itself, which remained stiff the whole way through. Overall, I'd say this version of the story is still amazing and definitely worth experiencing. So if you're thinking about it, whether you're new to Hunter x Hunter or have watched the 2011 version / have read the manga, you should absolutely give it a try. For first-timers, you'll get to see a compelling and deep story, and if you're already a fan, you'll be able to watch a completely different take on it that will surprise you even if you already know the ins and outs of this world. If you plan on watching it, I suggest the fan remastered version, which you can easily find online and download. It's much better quality, it allows you to better appreciate those hand-drawn frames and backgrounds. I hope you enjoyed the video, and that I was able to make you curious enough to check this show out. It really deserves it. Subscribe for more anime and manga content. I'm planning to do a lot more of these, both on old and new series. Bye bye. Oh wait, before you go, last fun fact. Togashi voiced this guy in this adaptation.
だが、一流のロッククライマーなら、このぐらいの取っかかり